Hi guys. Do you like my haircut? I did it myself. I'm sure you can tell. Today we're going to talk about my tips for beginners when they are first started on their tarot journey and kind of how to get themselves at a place where they feel comfortable reading for themselves and for others. So let's get started, shall we? So I thought for this channel and just kind of for this series moving forward, we could do this in a more comfortable way than maybe I've been on other platforms. I feel like there's a lot of rigidity online, and just kind of making this a more comfortable environment will help everybody to absorb information a little bit better. So I was hoping that maybe you could grab a cup of coffee or tea or water and that we could discuss this together comfortably. So let's get into it. I know for a lot of people, tarot is a very overwhelming topic. It's a very overwhelming tool and part of our craft because there are so many cards, and you can read uprights and you can read reversals, and it's a lot. And so my biggest advice, just starting off the bat, is remembering that tarot is a craft, it's a practice, and it's not a race. I know that we live kind of in this culture right now with social media where it's super easy to compare yourself to other practitioners of magic or even just people who are spiritually inclined, and kind of where they are with tarot. And I have to say that social media is an incredibly misleading place. If you listen to my podcast with Maria, you probably heard me say this I don't know, a billion times, that even our social media is not a direct reflection of what our practices are actually like. Just like anybody's social media, we're showing you curated portions of that. It's well curated. It is meant to be educational and not an actual example of what our practices are like. And the same thing goes for tarot. You'll see these people online that they look like they are just skilled, perfect readers, and they're doing it 20 times a day. And while that might be true for some people, it's not true for everyone. And there are people out there that are naturally inclined to tarot as well. Just like any skill, right? You have people that, let's say artists, that, they pick up the pen and paper for the first time and they're eons better than anybody around them who's also drawing at the same level. Tarot is the same way. You can have people that are naturally inclined to remembering card meanings more and drawing their own intuition based off of symbolism. But that doesn't mean that you should be at that level just because they are. So really, just right off the bat, slow down. Enjoy yourself. Tarot is a skill. It is a craft, and it is something meant to be fulfilling in your life and to be enjoyed. Not something for you to feel pressured to meet some sort of standard. It's ridiculous. So don't do that to yourself. Secondly, or not secondly, but bouncing off that idea, if you will, if you're getting into tarot to make a quick buck, stop. What are you doing? Don't do that. I know we live in a hustle culture right now. Our society tells us that every single hobby and passion project we have to make money off of. And I get that. That's the financial situation that a lot of us are in. And a lot of people choose to use tarot to make their living off of. And there's nothing wrong with that. I, for one, am one of those people. It's my profession. It's something that is both my day job and my side job. Tarot is my life. And also a moderately, trickled income via my book. It's literally my life. But that being said, just like saying that it's not a race and that it's something that you develop, you can't buy a tarot deck and then tomorrow go out and try to profit off of it. I mean, you can, but the issue with that is that in our community, as a whole, we are seen as grifters by the outside world, scammers, con artists, people that are there to take advantage of people's vulnerabilities and profit off that. And if you go and buy a tarot deck and then a week later start charging people for readings, you're contributing to that. And I can't condone that. I can't support it. And obviously, we're all in this world to make our own decisions. But just consider that. Consider what you're doing when you do stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that you can't read for other people or that you can't accept money. However, how I would do it is, instead of charging people, be really upfront. Hey, I'm learning. This is something I'd like to practice on you. If you'd like to give a tip, you're welcome to. Here's how you can do that. If you don't want a tip, that's totally okay as well. Leaving it up as a tip option for people means you're being really transparent and doesn't give you that shady, scammy energy. But it still gives people the opportunity to say thank you with cash. Because this is taking something energetically from you, and it's okay to be open to accepting money from that as long as you're being honest and transparent about it. And I think that's where a lot of people fall in the wrong, is they aren't honest, and that's not good. So right off the bat, just be honest and don't get into it for money. It's so scummy, man. It's not nice. It's so not nice, and I don't like it. And it makes my skin crawl when people do that. So please don't do that. Please. So, moving from all the soapbox conversation that I just had, I'm going to step off my soapbox now. If you're starting out, I really, really recommend that you start with a Rider-Waite Smith deck. There's many variations of this. There is the Smith Centennial. There is the original Rider-Waite Smith. There are decks that follow a reimagination of the exact Rider-Waite Smith, like the Modern Witch Tarot by Lisa Sturl, for example. I hope I said that right. There's lots of decks that follow that exact Rider-Waite Smith imagery. It's just maybe revived. The reason why the Rider-Waite Smith is so important is because the backbone of modern tarot comes from the Rider-Waite Smith. Now, there are other variations on that, like the Thoth deck. I will link below sources for that because that is not my specialty, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it is. The Rider-Waite Smith is where I get all of my information from, and it's what my background is in, and I've been reading for over a decade. So that's where I'm comfortable, and I feel like that's where I'm comfortable giving advice with. The Rider-Waite Smith was but it was produced in 1909 by the illustrator Pamela Colman Smith and the esoteric writer, the occultist A.E. Waite. This combination, or this pairing, if you will, is what gives us our modern backbone in tarot today. And it's really important, in my personal opinion, that we all kind of start there. The original symbolism and numerology that we find in the Rider-Waite Smith is the backbone of going on to pip decks and indie decks and reimaginations. I don't recommend people starting with indie decks, although they're beautiful. I've got a billion. Although they're beautiful, artists often take liberties, and as they should. They're artists. They're incredibly talented individuals. Why shouldn't they take liberties, right? But with those liberties, that means that they have their own interpretations, which isn't going to translate deck to deck. It's exclusive for that singular deck. And while the Rider-Waite Smith might not translate to all decks, a lot of decks are based around that meaning, and it gives you a backbone to kind of bounce off of and feel your way around pip decks in the future. Now, going off the Rider-Waite Smith, something that I think is super important is understanding the numerology in tarot. Now, this isn't a perfect... Numerology of tarot is not perfect. It doesn't translate suit to suit. It just doesn't. I'd like to sit here and lie to you and be like, oh, well, if you know, like, the meaning of 1, for example, it always translates to that every single time. And it doesn't. It just doesn't. Well, 1 does. That was a bad example. 7, for example. That's a better one. 7 is better. Oh, people watching this are like, pretty sure that aces are actually always aces, Robin. Anyway, I digress. Numerology and understanding it is a really good way to get the key meanings of cards when you're first figuring it out. Like I said, it's not perfect, but if you understand what the minor suit means and you pair it with its tarot numerological meaning, oftentimes it can give you a really rough basis. It's not perfect, but it'll get you somewhere, especially if you're getting hung up on a card. And the numerology also does translate into the majors for the most part. Usually because you go into the double digits, you add the two numbers together, as in the 1 equals this and the 2 equals that. And most times it'll work out that way where it'll have that meaning. It's not perfect, again, but getting familiar with numerology for the Rider-Waite Smith specifically is very beneficial when you're first starting out. Another thing I recommend doing when you're a beginner is keeping a journal. I know that a lot of practitioners in magic will tell you to keep a journal, and I do agree that I think that whether you are practicing tarot or you're on a witchcraft adjacent path, journaling your magical journey is important and incredibly useful, and it helps you to grow as an individual. And I'm not going to get into books of shadows and grimoires today, but I do think that keeping a tarot journal is incredibly important and beneficial. For me personally, I keep one. I try to pull a card every day, but if we're being really transparent with each other, it's probably twice a week. When I was first starting out, I pulled one every single day, and I'd often do mini spreads, just past, present, future, or if it was a day-to-day thing, doing a situation, obstacle, advice for the day was always really beneficial. And it helps us essentially to get really familiar with the cards and see how maybe those meanings will manifest themselves in the day. It also is a really good way to work on our intuition if we are keeping a journal. And really simply, you can pull a card for the day, say, have the thought in your brain, what is today going to bring? You pull the card. You compare your intuition met with the card's meaning, and you do a prediction for the day. Then when the day's over, or in my preferred way, the next morning, we reflect back on that and how that actually ended up manifesting itself for the day and how close we were. It's a really good way to build your intuition when it comes to reading tarot and to grow your craft to be able to do things like predictive tarot. It is a skill, though. This is something that's going to take you a really long time to hone in the best way possible. And finally, the most drawn out answer I have here for you today is focusing on one card at a time or 1 or 2 cards at a time. This particular method takes a really long time, but if you're incredibly dedicated to learning your craft and tarot in the best way possible, I really recommend it. What you do is you just pull a card, starting with the Fool. So we're going to go across the major arcana into the minors. You start with the Fool, you pull it up. All right, what imagery do we see here? All right, we see a yellow background. We see a red knapsack, a white dog. What do these symbolisms mean? What does that translate to? What's the numerology mean? What's the meaning of this card upright in reverse? And sit on this card for a few days. And repeat the process through the full 78. Again, I suggest keeping a journal. Writing stuff down, like the meanings, writing down symbolism, etc., is a really good way to help you remember stuff because you've done the physical act of writing it. And it also puts it in a place where you can reference back to your own notes, not 15 different sources at once. So journal, 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 journal. Get a notebook and journal. Journal everything. It's something that you need to be dedicated to if you're going to go down that route. And when I say that, I don't mean that you need to give up your life and all you do is tarot now. There's going to be days you're probably not going to look at cards. And there might even be weeks if you're going this route where you're doing a card at a time where you don't touch it. Give yourself a little bit of kindness and go back to it. We're humans. We have real lives. We have real things going on. And the idea or the social media implication that we're all doing this perfectly every day is a load of bull. And anybody who tells you that they do it perfectly every day, I'm not saying you can't trust them, but, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Some people really are great at doing it perfectly every day. I mean, I know some amazing occultists that are into ritual work that are perfect at doing their rituals every day. That's not everyone. And that doesn't make you less than or shitty. That just means that you need to pick it up, give yourself some kindness, and start again. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful for you guys, and I hope that you find some use out of it. We'll talk later in another video about the majors and the minors, symbolism and numerology, but I figured today we would start real simple with some tips and tricks on how to get started in tarot. So I hope you have a beautiful day or evening or whatever time it is where you are. I hope that you're really nice to yourself. Bye.